Hey guys, welcome to the latest episode of the 4040 Vision podcast, the ultimate sports history pod where hindsight is 40/40. Before we get started, let's pay some bills and hear from our presenting sponsors.
Hey everybody. Welcome to episode 14 of the 4040 Vision podcast, the ultimate sports history pod brought to you by Sideline Sports. I'm your host, Khaled and Osama, and with me today is my fellow host, Osama Dahoud. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, good, man. How's it going?
Good. So we're recording today's episode on Thursday, July 28th, and today we are going to be doing a redraft of the lottery picks from the 2020 NBA draft. So we'll go through the draft, or the lottery, I should say. We'll tell you who went where and who we might have taken instead of the player that was selected with that slot. So without further ado, we can start with the number one pick. So the number one pick of the 2020 NBA draft was Anthony Edwards, shooting guard, Minnesota Timberwolves, out of the University of Georgia. So Sam, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, for me, that pick's not changing. I would take Anthony Edwards, number one. He's number one on my board for the redraft. After seeing him go off in this most recent playoff series against the Memphis Grizzlies, it's really all I needed to see. He could be streaky, but he could shoot. He's elite at creating his own shot. Incredibly strong and athletic. A really good finisher at the rim. Just has a lot of grit to him. He has crazy confidence. Would love to see him contain it because you could tell he got really trigger happy against Memphis. But I suppose he wouldn't be who he was without that confidence. Solid on-ball defender. I think he tends to watch off-ball a bit. He gambles, like we saw him lose John Morant, and they lost a game because he was ball watching a bit, but I mean, these are just nitpicking. You could tell his work ethic is insane. He's really young. It seems like for such a young person, he has great leadership qualities already. He's very outspoken for his age. And, for me, definitely the best player out of this draft.
Yeah, I mean, you said just about everything I wanted to say, but he's going to be 21 before the season starts, going into his third year. And the expectations are through the roof. We saw some of his potential being realized as they, didn't make a deep run in the playoffs, but they gave the Grizzlies a tough time. And we did see some of the flaws and things as well on display. But hopefully these are things that with time he can improve and work on. But he's everything that you want from a first round pick, both from a talent perspective, from a mentality perspective, from confidence perspective. Like he's a type of dude that can change your franchise. And I think after some of the failures that Minnesota's had at the top of the draft and the lottery, I think to hit this one out of the park and really get a guy that can really change the course of their franchise is quite a success. So I think we're pretty, easily aligned that he's still the number one pick and even in a redraft.
Yeah, just such an exciting player. It's number one picks aren't always in retrospect worthy of number one picks. But this guy's he's dynamite. He's prime time.
Yeah, I think more often than not, as we go through this, if we do more and more of these, the number one guy is not going to stay the number one guy. So, all right. So next up, so with the second overall pick, it was to the Golden State Warriors was James Wiseman, center out of Memphis, and I'm pretty confident saying that he would probably not be your number two pick in this draft.
No, James Wiseman is not a Warriors fan, but definitely saw a lot from other players that were worthy of number two. This was close, but I'm going to go with LaMelo Ball. I think LaMelo is destined for stardom. He's got some gravity to his game. He's a pure natural talent. He played overseas and really just worked on his game playing with pros overseas. Just crazy court vision. He has these insane Magic Johnson level passes in transition. And he was given the keys to this Hornets offense, and it's looked really good. Like, they were a really exciting crunch time team last season. I love how he can just get to his spots and create his own shot. He's not hyper efficient, but I mean, he's not shy to shoot. He's had over 40 games with 15 plus shot attempts. There's still defensively a lot to be desired, but he's pretty big. He's 6'7", 6'10" wingspan. Defensively, I don't see him getting significantly better, but with the right personnel, I think he'll hold up fine. But if he was drafted the Warriors, this would have been a really fun Golden State team.
Yeah, I mean, he probably would have fitted pretty easily. Maybe not from a culture perspective. That's the only concern. So I did not have LaMelo going number 2. I did. This was really close, like you said. I agonized over this choice, but I have some concerns about LaMelo. Just some of the things you talked about: his inefficiency. He likes to jack up shots. Some maturity concerns. I think he has superstar potential. We've seen him. The dude makes highlight plays. He makes crazy passes seem routine, but I like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, is this a dude? Does he have the right mentality to be like a winning player in the NBA? I mean, he's still a kid. He's a baby. We talked about Anthony Edwards being 21. I think LaMelo's the same age. So obviously he'll mature as he grows, but is it going to be enough to make up for, kind of his lackadaisical attitude on defense? Kind of, maybe it's just a culture thing. Maybe if he's in a winning culture, that all this would change. But I mean, generally you don't end up on a winning culture team if you go number 2 overall. So I actually had Tyrese Halliburton as my number 2 pick. He's he's not much better than LaMelo defensively, but I think the maturity, the playmaking, the scoring, the efficiency, I think he's the type of dude that you can really build a team around. Maybe he's not making the splash plays, but he's making the winning plays. And some of the back end numbers, corroborate that. Like, if you look at the win shares in this from this class, he has the most win shares with 10.5. That's almost 2 points more, or two win shares more than LaMelo, and he has not been on very good teams. He's been on a bad Sacramento team and an Indiana team that was actively tanking. So yeah, I think it was really close. Don't get me wrong, but I have Tyrese just like a smidge ahead of LaMelo at number 2, and I think it'd be a great fit with the Warriors at the number 2 spot.
Yeah, that would have been also an excellent choice for the Warriors, given that James Wiseman, who we'll get to later, didn't play as much. But yeah. Who went number 3?
So in number 3 was LaMelo Ball to the Charlotte Hornets. So in my draft, he would have still ended up number 3 with the Charlotte Hornets. So who did you have going number 3?
Yeah, so we just
with LaMelo off the board.
Yeah, we flipped these ones. I went with Tyrese Halliburton. You touched on a lot of great stuff. He's just a hell of a talent. Went really low in this draft, but he's just been so fun to watch. He was the Kings crunch time guy in his rookie year, which was cool. He could run an offense pretty efficiently. He scores efficiently. In sack, he averaged 15, 4, and 7 on 46, 41, 84 splits, 59% true shooting. He's shown a lot of improvement too in his game, mid-range pull-ups, step back threes. On the flip side, watching his shooting form, it makes him a little harder for him to get his shot off quickly, maybe a little more difficult to shoot over longer defenders. It was close with LaMelo, but now he's in Indiana. I think we'll want to see how efficient he is when his usage rate goes up, because that's definitely going to be the case given what they gave up for him. Nonetheless, excellent player. This was close with LaMelo. This would have been an awesome fit in Charlotte as well.
Yeah, I think it just depends on what you are banking more on, like the superstar potential of LaMelo or the kind of steady hand of Halliburton. So I think it's more of like, are you betting on a higher ceiling or a higher floor? And I think Halliburton has the higher floor than LaMelo.
I want the behind the back passes and the YouTube highlights and the Bleacher Report notifications. LaMelo fire emoji,
Right.
fire emoji.
Exploding head emoji, boom, boom.
LaMelo
Yeah.
almost made that instead of like, some other highlight that should have went up that night.
It's like Halliburton's highlights are all like chest passes and the fundamentals, all that. All right. So we'll move on to the 4th overall pick. So in the actual draft, the Chicago Bulls picked 4th overall, and they picked small forward Patrick Williams out of Florida State. So who did you have with the 4th overall pick?
Yeah, Patrick Williams. I remember when he was drafted, that was peculiar to say the least. I'm taking Tyrese Maxey here, point guard, plays for Philly now. And I took him here because of his youth. Very young player, has showed a high floor this season. He had a breakout year with Ben Simmons not playing. He can create his own shot. He's got a nice floater game. He's a good finisher at the rim. He's improving as a playmaker. He looked great with Joel Embiid playing in the pick and roll, pick and pop. He's going to have some gravity to him. Consistency might be a question, but with young players like this, showing this much promise this early, really like him at the 4th spot. Chicago ended up getting the other ball. What's his name? Damn it. Lonzo Ball. And he's been good for them. Maxey's shown to be pretty durable. This would have been a good fit in Chicago.
So I had a different pick, actually. This was another super close one. Especially, I love Tyrese Maxey. I love what he's done in Philadelphia, filling that void left behind by Ben Simmons. But I gave the slight edge to Desmond Bane over Tyrese Maxey. So Desmond Bane was actually the last pick of the first round, and I was so impressed with him during these playoffs. He's shown that he can be a winning player in the playoffs. He was, I think, arguably Memphis' second best player after Ja. The dude can shoot the lights out of the ball. He's a career 43% shooter from 3. Tyrese Maxey's not too far behind. He's just under 40%, but I think that edge and also the size that he brings, dude's huge. He can guard, just about anybody. I think he was hampered a little bit by a back injury. I think it was in the playoffs this year. But I think he's due for like a real breakout year. And I think he's going to be special. So I had Desmond Bane going 4th to the Bulls.
Yeah. Excellent pick.
All right. So 5th overall, move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So they had the 5th overall pick, and they picked Isaac Okoro out of Auburn. Yeah. Who's been okay. But yeah, who did you have with the 5th overall pick?
Yeah, we flipped this one. I took
Desmond Bane. Took me at number 30, huh? Do you feel in charge?
And we forgot to mention Maxey went 21st to Philly. So this is a big jump for him from 21st to 3rd or 4th or 5th, depending on who you're asking.
Yeah, if you're asking me or Khaled, yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, Desmond Bane. I think he only went as low as he did because of his age, right? He was like 23, 24 already when he was drafted.
He's old, quote unquote, for
basketball.
For basketball.
But he showed he's strong as hell. He could shoot the lights out, dead eye shooter, even contested 3 feet, 4 feet behind the line. He could shoot from anywhere. I was also very impressed with him defensively. Moves his feet well. He's very strong, hard to get by. Was crucial to Memphis's defensive efficiency when John Morant was out. He did very well leading the team. He does look like Bobby Bacala from The Sopranos. If he went on a diet, there's that. He's got that going for him. But Desmond Bane, awesome player. I don't know if there's a player like him on the Cavs now that shoots like that. I hope I'm not overlooking anybody over 40% the way he does. But this would have been a great pick, and everyone absolutely. I get going with age, and you and I are definitely taking some players in this draft a little higher, like Maxey, because of age. But Desmond Bane should have went a lot higher than he did.
Yeah, Maxey's like a full, almost 3 years younger than him. I think he may be more versatile offensively, but I think for me, the difference maker was Bane's size and just how great of a shooter he is. I mean, he was 43% his rookie year, and he shot 3 more threes a game in his sophomore season and kept that percentage. So, he's probably one of the best shooters in the league. For my 5th pick, I had Tyrese Maxey. I know they like to double up on point guards in Cleveland. So, but I think this would have been a good pick for them. He's shown no fear in the playoffs, just like Bane. I mean, even as a rookie, not last season, but the year before, when Ben Simmons was doing his disappearing act against Atlanta, Maxey stepped up. The moment was too big for him, but there's no fear in this guy. So he's just another Kentucky guy that's just balling out in the NBA.
Your precious armory. We will need it.
Sorry.
All right. That's enough Bane impressions for today. All right. So the next pick is the 6th overall pick, and that is for the Atlanta Hawks. They picked Onyeka Okongwu from the University of Southern California. So who did you have going 6th overall?
I took Onyeka Okongwu at number 6. I at first, I saw the pick and didn't know who he was when he was drafted. And he sat out most of his rookie year because of, I think, a foot injury. If I'm not mistaken, I might have that wrong, but he was injured most of his rookie year. And they said, when you got the next Anthony Davis, which is, a little pretty high praise, you got to take your time and let him recover. And, he came on at the end of the year, played like a rookie last season. My God, like an insane defensive potential. He is a complete eraser at the basket. He moves his feet very well for his size. I get that he was behind Clint Capella, who was very serviceable, playing alongside Trae Young. This kid could play. And for Atlanta to go from Clint Capella to Onyeka Okongwu is a hell of an upgrade, given that Capella was serviceable as a protector at the rim himself. This was a good pick. I don't know if you took him at all in the lottery, but for me, very young. This kid's going to be on an all defensive team one day.
I actually did not have him in my redraft. Spoiler alert, I guess. But I see the defense potential. I think I was more concerned maybe about the injuries than you were. He's played less than 100 games in 2 seasons. So, after a 3rd year, that could definitely change my mind. But I didn't have him on my board. So I actually had them taking Saddiq Bey instead. So I feel like all of the moves that they made to get DeJounte Murray, I feel like Saddiq Bey could have fit that bill instead. Maybe he's not the same ball handler that Murray is, but he can play in that backcourt and does provide some of that defensive, and some of that size in that backcourt that Murray is ostensibly going to provide next to Trae Young. So I've been impressed with what Bey's been doing in Detroit. I know it's hard to play well and shine on a team that's like actively trying to lose. But I think this season, now that they have Jaden Ivey, I think he's really going to shine in Detroit. And I think he would have been doing the same in Atlanta. Okay, and next up with the 7th overall pick, the Detroit Pistons selected Killian Haynes out of Ratio Farm from Germany. I don't want to butcher that pronunciation. But yeah, Killian Hayes, 7th overall. Who did you have with the 7th overall pick?
Yeah, I took Saddiq Bey, who also went to the Pistons, I believe, right? Right.
Yeah, he went to the Pistons with the 19th overall pick. So another decent jump for him.
Okay, I don't know why I overdrafted him. There, it's underdrafted. So yeah, Saddiq Bey. Loved him last year. Can really get hot as a scorer. He scored 51 in a game. He's a young wing, which is great. That's hard to come by. Strong rebounder. Wasn't very efficient so far. I think with time he will get more efficient. And you touched on the youth the Pistons have. Super impressed with him and the young core they have. So Saddiq Bey. Another kid who went too low. Excellent pick.
Yeah, and with the seventh pick, with Sadiq Bey off the board, I have Cole Anthony going to Detroit. So Cole Anthony was picked 15th by Orlando, and I think he's been one of the better players, period, from this draft. He's a pretty good scorer. I think he's seventh overall in points in this draft. Not a great 3-point shooter. He needs to work on his efficiency overall. But I am encouraged by some of the things we've seen. Again, it's hard to shine on a bad team. So similar to Bay on Detroit, Cole Anthony's struggled a bit in Orlando, but I definitely have high hopes for him. He's still on the younger side. He's only 22, going into his third year in the league, and he's improved in every category offensively. So I have him going to the Detroit Pistons. Okay. All right. And then now the eighth overall pick. So the New York Knicks selected power forward Obi Toppin out of Dayton with the eighth overall pick. So who did you have going eighth overall?
Yeah, I picked Cole Anthony here. Point guard, plays for the Magic now. I think that Cole Anthony is from New York. I think his dad is also a socially active person in New York. So this actually would have been a great fit. This is the point guard the Knicks should have drafted in 2020.
Yeah, his dad is a former Knick, Greg Anthony.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, he played for the Knicks from 91 to 95.
Right. I don't know why I overlooked that.
You don't remember him coming out in the Timbs for the dunk contest?
Yeah.
Let's remove that from his resume because that was pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, the dunk contest in general.
Yeah, that was a rough one. But yeah.
I mean, if they were going to pass on Tyrese Halliburton, who everyone here in the lottery did, Cole Anthony would have been a good pick for them. Just young, explosive player. He's really inefficient right now, but he's just so raw still. He does have a lot of duds. He's on a bad team, though. They've added a lot of talent over the years. He's kind of, I don't know if Jalen Suggs is complimentary to him, which is kind of, I don't know if that's played a part in his production. The thing is, if the kid doesn't improve over the next couple of years, he won't be a starter. But he has the potential to be. I think playing for the Knicks would have given him more exposure and opportunity. And I don't think they would have drafted another point guard, potential starting guard so quickly. No pun intended there.
Yeah, and this would have allowed them to not have to pay Jalen Brunson $120 million because they would have their starting point guard next to RJ Barrett. So I'm not saying that Anthony is as good a player as Brunson, but I think this definitely would have changed the calculus for them over the next couple of years, and it would have given them, pretty good point guard to build on. So that's a good pick. But so for me, I had the Knicks taking Isaiah Stewart. So Isaiah Stewart went to Detroit with the 16th overall pick. The guy is just a rebounding monster. He leads this class with total rebounds by almost 200 plus rebounds. So he's been durable. And I think that he just brings a toughness and a defensive presence that not that they've necessarily been missing completely, because they do have Mitchell Robinson, the foul king, him and what's the guy's name from Memphis?
Jaren Jackson Jr.
Jaren Jackson, the foul kings. But I think he gives them some versatility on that front line. And I think he would have been a good complementary player. I did waffle a little bit about having them still take Obi Toppin because I think he will fit their style now that they can kind of run and gun a little bit more with Brunson and Barrett in that backcourt. But I think Stewart's rebounding and the fact that he's played so many games and so many minutes gives him the slight edge to me over Obi Toppin. All right. So with the 9th overall pick, we're starting to get to the back half of the lottery here. The Washington Wizards selected Denny Avdija. Struggle with his last name. From Maccabi Tel Aviv, 9th overall, who's not been so hot. So who did you have with the 9th overall pick?
I did not have Danny something, Avija. I have James Wiseman going at number 9 to Washington. I know he went to the Warriors at number 2. I thought about where to put him here because he hasn't played as much as these other guys, and thought about putting him at 14, but I thought that was disingenuous because he has shown a lot of raw talent. He didn't give us much of a sample size in college, only playing 3 games. But coming to the pros, he was asked to start on a really weird Warriors team that had like Kelly Oubre and Ken Bazemore, and that was all over the place. Without Klay Thompson playing, who had just torn his ACL, or it ruptured his Achilles a month or so before the draft, give or take. So he plays on Christmas Day, opening day, for a team with championship aspirations, and it was asking a lot for him, to say the least. But I think that before he got hurt, he showed some flashes of finishing at the rim, offensive rebounding ability. He's pretty good in the pick and roll. I have more to say about him. I don't want to say everything. Do you want to talk about him, or should I unload the clip here?
I will just say I had him going 9th as well to the Wizards. I'll let you cook, but I think just one point is, I think even with the fact that he kind of redshirted his first 2 years, essentially, I think the Wizards would still gamble on his potential and his upside. If they're looking ahead, 2-3 years from now with a combo of, 2-man game of Bradley Beal and James Wiseman, I think that's a pretty formidable combo. If Wiseman becomes, anything close to what we think he could be. So, but yeah, I'll let you cook on Wiseman here.
Yeah. So I think, the other part of it was, you can tell he wants to try a lot of things. He's very eager to show off his other skill sets. He's a shooter. He can pick and pop, things like that. He's like really eager to show some of that stuff. And I think that the Warriors were very careful with that type of thing. They wanted him to let's just use you as a rim runner, play in the post. And it was kind of weird because they were juggling that back and forth. It didn't seem like they really were entirely sure how to use him.
So yeah, it was a weird fit. Like they would start him a few games and then have him come off the bench. It was just awkward in general.
They did bring in an assistant coach to develop him. Jama Malela, I think is his name. I don't want to get that wrong. Who ended up playing a big part in Kevon Looney's development this year. Was brought on for Wiseman, ended up benefiting Looney pretty significantly. And I think in the couple of summer league games we saw Wiseman in so far, you can see that they are trying to use him in the post. He's trying to play in the post. It looked good running to the rim. When those guards in summer league gave him the ball. So yeah, incredibly young player. A lot of raw talent. Potential is still unknown, but with young centers like this, the way centers are playing these days, he's a huge kid. There's still a potential there. 9 is fair, given what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like we said, you gamble on potential, especially in the kind of back half of the lottery. So that's a fair pick. All right.
Big Jim.
Big Jim, the worst nickname in sports. Hopefully that doesn't stick.
That's not his real nickname.
I know. I'm just kidding. All right. So next up, the 10th overall pick, we have the Phoenix Suns. The man that in one of my group chats is affectionately referred to as Goggles. The Suns selected power forward / center Jalen Smith out of Maryland. So who did you have going 10th?
I didn't have Jalen Smith.
Yeah.
I have Isaiah Stewart, who I think you took at number 8 to Detroit.
Yeah, I did.
So Isaiah Stewart in Phoenix, it's interesting because the way Dwayne Casey used him in Detroit was kind of like a big almost, but he looked a little undersized playing at center. Good offensive rebounder. You said he was a rebounding monster. I second that. For a rookie, I don't know where he sits in the top 10. He gets in foul trouble like hell. for his playing time, but he does play well in pick and roll. He looked good in small doses. The team might try and play him more in the post, and maybe utilize some of his passing, since they have so many dynamic players on the Pistons. It would have been an interesting fit with the Suns because they have Ayton, who plays a power forward for the Suns right now. I don't know.
Jay Crowder, I believe.
Jay Crowder. So Jay Crowder, undersized for. This would have been interesting next to Ayton, given that the rebounding ability. Ayton's an okay rebounder for his size. This would have been interesting. I think he's a good player. He's a good lottery player.
Yeah, and I think it would have been a good fit in Phoenix because some of the reasons that you stated. I mean, they've been looking for backup bigs. I mean, at some point they were ruling out Bismack Biyombo. So that shows you. I mean, they were probably hoping that Jalen Smith could be, that front court mate with Ayton, or the backup to Ayton, or even better than Ayton. But it didn't work out. I don't think he's on the team anymore. They didn't extend him. They didn't extend, I think, his third-year option. So I think he's a free agent at this point. So obviously that pick did not work out. And I think Isaiah Stewart ticks some of those boxes. He would have been a good guy off the bench, just an energy guy, a rebounder. And he does solve some of those size issues that you have if you're rolling out, Jay Crowder as your starting power forward. So I think that would have been a good pick. So I actually had Emmanuel Quickly going 10th overall to the Suns. Obviously, one of their deficiencies has been at the backup point guard position. They had Cameron Payne out there, which is not a recipe for success. My buddies and I always talk about, they they beat this horse to death, that the Suns should have taken Tyrese Halliburton, and they probably would have won a championship if they had taken Tyrese Halliburton, because he went 12th overall, so he was still on the board at this point. But I think Quickly does provide, a good option as a backup to Chris Paul. Maybe he's the future after the Chris Paul eventual retirement, because he's getting close to 40 years old. I would have gone with Quickly, and I think he would have been a nice fit there as that backup point guard.
I took him a little later. I'll get to him later down the road, just in a little bit.
Yep. All right. So next up, with the 11th overall pick, we have the San Antonio Spurs. They selected shooting guard Devin Vassell out of Florida State. So who did you have going 11th overall?
I thought about Vassell. There's a lot of guys that were selected in this draft that showed a lot of potential. So I just couldn't put him in here. I left him out. I get why they took him, but I'm not going to talk about him. I took Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams went to the Bulls, as we know, really high. He went really, really high. And I don't recall if he started for his own team in college.
I think that was the knock on him, was that he wasn't a starter in college, if I remember correctly. I think it was one of those guys that, the Spurs took him, so he must be good.
That's I'm talking about Patrick Williams.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
Patrick Williams.
yeah.
With Devin Vassell. Patrick Williams. He's shown flashes of a high floor. Bulls fans are, hopeful that they can find consistency in him. It seems like, I don't know what his off the court struggles are. A friend of mine was telling me that he's got a lot going on with some confidence, and so I don't know if it's dramatic or what the case may be, but he was a little bit distracted. But he is disciplined defensively. He moves his feet well. He's strong. He's got a wide wingspan. He's got a lot of potential. I think that with DeMar DeRozan on the team, who I think is a great vet to have, especially for these kinds of things like mental health and getting your mind right and how to be a pro. He's in a good situation.
He's been super outspoken about that stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of the first name that's brought up, right? Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, about the mental health portion of being an athlete. And if this is the case with Patrick Williams, he's in a good spot for it. Because I think, you watch him. I wanted to maybe talk a little basketball, but he likes to, in the mid-range a lot, likes to come off his screens in the pick and roll. and take mid-range jumpers, that's fine. If he can expand his range, the Bulls could really use that. So if you were to go to the Spurs are known for having this incredible development staff that also would have been a really good fit given where he went. This seems a little bit more reasonable from what we've seen. But he does have a high potential. But from what we've seen so far, this is a good spot for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this is a fair spot. Bulls fans will tell you that he's like the next coming of Dennis Rodman or something with his defensive ability. So I think he would have been a good fit with San Antonio. Just about anybody is a good fit with San Antonio, like you said, because of that developmental staff. I think they would have made him a better offensive player. But I think that the floor that he comes with of just being a good to great defender, I think is enough reason to take him in the lottery, especially again in the back half of the lottery. So I did not have Patrick Williams going to the Spurs. I had Obi Toppin going to the Spurs. He's a bit older than some of these other guys, which I think does not scare the Spurs away. He's one of these guys that we have some unrealized potential just because he's been playing behind Julius Randle, so he hasn't started very many games. I think only 10 so far in his career. I'm hoping to see more from him this season with true point guard, being able to unlock some of his abilities. But I still think he has a lot of potential. He's a crazy athlete. And I think if anybody could maximize that potential, it would be the Spurs. So I think Obi Toppin would be going here to the Spurs with the 11th overall pick. All right. So we're getting down to the last three picks of the lottery. So the 12th overall pick, the Sacramento Kings selected point guard Tyrese Halliburton out of Iowa State. So in our draft, he would be gone before the third or by the third overall pick. But with Halliburton not on the board anymore, who would you have had the Kings pick with the 13th overall pick? Or sorry, 12th overall pick.
It's shocking to say this. Like the Kings picked Tyrese Halliburton. We have him going like top 3. Like
and he's not on the team anymore.
Yeah,
and they traded him away.
A genuinely competent pick, and they traded him away for Sabonis. So I would have taken.
I like Sabonis a lot, but yeah, that's a topic for another.
Sure, I mean, yeah, they took this guy in the lottery, and then they traded him away, and he was a really good player for them, but it looks like they just wanted to go in another direction. I have Obi Toppin going to the Kings. I know he went to the Knicks. You put him on the Spurs, which is cool. What I feel for Obi Toppin because he's an explosive player, right? Like I remember when Stephen A was shown at the draft, he was just like every draft he's lamenting what the Knicks do, but he was just kind of like topping his showtime. We needed a point guard. So I think he's right about that. He's a high flyer. He was in the dunk contest. He had a hell of a moment during the playoffs with an alley-oop. He's an energy guy. Like the power forward's a weird position in the league right now. Like DeMar DeRozan played at power forward at points last year. Draymond Green, like bigger guys play at power forward genuinely, but they can stretch the floor. I shouldn't use Draymond Green as an example for this, but
not for stretching the floor.
They call them stretch fours now. So I think if he continues to play at 4, I don't know if he could be a starter. It's kind of hard. He might just be a bench guy. I think he would, based on his abilities, unless he can expand his game further down, he should play center, I think. I know the Knicks have Mitchell Robinson at center. Is that right?
Yeah, and they just signed Isaiah Hartenstein as a backup who also plays center. So yeah, I don't think they see him in the future as a center.
Yeah, I just at this position I don't see him starting. If Randall's going to get paid that much, and they took him in the lottery, that's tough. I think that on Sacramento they have Sabonis now. I think Rashawn Holmes is playing center for them. That would have been interesting competition, to say the least. We know who he is, so yeah, I like him. Playing as a big more than a 4, playing at center, but good player. Kings would not have been a great destination for him. I think he fits like the hype for New York fans. It is fun to see them get excited about him. That's such a cool arena when they do get Liddy over there. Yeah, that's my Obi Toppin 2 cents.
I think he could have been fun in Sacramento. I mean, the same way that Rashawn Holmes is fun to watch with De'Aaron Fox. I mean, kind of that run and gun style, which is what I think Toppin excels at. So I think you touched on a couple things. You said he's probably not a starter, which I think is fair. Just he's more of old school power forward, can't really stretch the floor. He's shown a willingness to shoot threes. He's not great at it. So he does have some limitations to his game offensively. I think if the Knicks do eventually move Julius Randle, I think obviously then he'll become a starter, because I don't think you're going to start Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein. So we may get to see more of Toppin, which I think the Knicks should give us a look, or should have a good look at him, because he's coming up on his third year. We need to know, is this guy for real? Is he who he is now? It's just energy guy, dunker, rim runner, whatever it is, or is there more to him that we just haven't seen? Because again, they haven't had a true point guard. So I'm really curious to see what ends up happening with him. So I had the Kings taking Patrick Williams. So we, again, another flip-flop here for us, for all the reasons that you mentioned. His defensive ability, his athleticism. I think that the Kings would get a lot of shit for picking him, which is, because of the things we talked about him not starting in college, some of the injury issues that he's had. So
the Kings would have got killed for picking him.
I know, right? It's just what bad organizations do. But I think he would have been, similar to what we talked about Toppin being able to give there with some energy and athleticism. I think he would be able to do the same. You'd have a pretty athletic front court with him and Rashawn Holmes. So I think it'd be fun. And if they did end up still getting Sabonis in this alternate universe, I think he'd be a good backup as a defensive big. So I'm good with that. All right. So the 13th overall pick, the New Orleans Pelicans selected Kira Lewis Jr., point guard out of Alabama. So who did you have going 13th overall?
Who's that? Who's Kira Lewis Jr.?
That answers your question. Who is Kira Lewis Jr.?
I saw the name and I was like, I don't recall seeing that name play in a basketball game. That's probably my ignorance. Don't watch enough Pelicans games, but it just didn't ring a bell. I took Precious Achiuwa, who went to Miami, right?
Yep, he went to Miami.
Traded to the Rockets, the Raptors.
Yeah, as part of the Kyle Lowry deal.
Yeah, so Precious Achiuwa really moves his feet well. He can guard. I saw him moves his feet well guarding Giannis. He guarded Luka Doncic. Like that says a lot that he's a really good defender. He's a good rebounder. He's strong. He's clumsy. He gets into foul trouble a lot. I think if you can clean that up, and at the rim too, for a guy who's good at rebounding, he's not a good finisher around the rim. If he can improve that, maybe he has a chance at being like a really high level bench guy. He's a bench guy now. I don't know if he starts for Toronto, but because of that, I think finishing ability at the rim that's not quite there yet. He's more so a guy that you put in for defense, offensive rebounding, but he's not exactly going to light up the scoreboard.
Yeah, I think at this point of the lottery, you're good with getting a rotation guy. So I had the Pelicans selecting Precious Achiuwa as well with this 13th pick. Yeah, I don't think he's a starter long term. If he's your starting power forward, you're probably in some trouble, but he can play some small ball center. Not much of a shooter, can't stretch the floor, but he is a good rebounder. And I mean, to quote Bill Simmons, he always talks about this, like, is he a playoff guy? And he proved he was a playoff guy. He did play pretty well in the 6 games that he played this year with Toronto against Philly, put up a good fight. I mean, he was trying to guard Joel Embiid. So not many people can do that in the league. And he did a pretty decent job of it. So yeah, I think at this point, you're happy to get a guy that you can count on for, 15, 20 minutes a game in the playoffs, which is, I think, exactly what he can give you. So yeah, I mean, he's a good player. good rotation player, and that, like we said, that's about all you can ask for.
We agreed on a pick. It's been several picks.
Yeah,
it was Wiseman and Anthony Edwards. Were those the only two we agreed on?
I think so. Yeah, which is good.
Yeah,
variety is the spice of life. All right. Okay, the last pick of the 2020 NBA lottery, the Boston Celtics, with a pick from the Memphis Grizzlies, selected small forward Aaron Nesmith out of Vanderbilt, who I think played 0 minutes in the 2022 NBA Finals. So, who did you have going 14th overall to the Boston Celtics via the Memphis Grizzlies?
I took Emmanuel quickly. Did not take Aaron Nesmith. Don't know where I would have drafted him, but Emmanuel quickly. He went a little lower than this, right? He wasn't initially in the lottery either.
Quickly?
Yeah, or was he in the lottery?
He was. Man, why I lost this? How did I lose this pick? Give me 1 second. I will find it.
We'll filibuster. Well, yeah, I'll filibuster for you.
He went 25th overall to the. He's picked by the Thunder, but to the Knicks. So
you might have
25th overall.
That's my bad. I made you chase.
No, we didn't. I did not mention it. So good thing to bring up, because it is important to give context that he went from 25th overall to 14th overall.
14th in our should have been official. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so Emmanuel quickly got a lot of playing time when Derrick Rose got hurt. He had some moments in the playoffs when the Knicks made their return to the playoffs against Atlanta. He looked pretty good. I think so far he looks like a backup point guard. He went as low as he did for a reason, but I think he's a little bit better than that. I think going to the Celtics would have actually been pretty good. They missed having an extra playmaker or point guard. That's why they had to trade for one in Brogdon. Quickly would have been pretty good in the postseason for them. I think that he's very streaky. He's not a good defender for his size. He gets picked on a lot because of that. He gets targeted. I think in New York, they just need, I would say, someone else to run a better offensive strategy than you shoot yourself out of a slump. For a bench guy to asking him to shoot himself out of a slump is crazy. Don't agree very much with what Tom Thibodeau is doing over there. But he's a very serviceable backup point guard.
Yeah, and I had him going 10th overall to the Suns, so I think a little bit higher of him than you do. But for the same reasons that he would have been a good fit in Phoenix, he would be a good fit in Boston as well. Like you said, they were missing that other ball handler, the other playmaker, somebody that can actually dribble on their team. So, yeah, Marcus Smart wouldn't be too happy about it. But, I mean, the Celtics went out and got Malcolm Brogdon this summer because they recognized that as a weakness in their on their team. So that's a solid pick. So I had, because obviously Quickly is not on the board anymore. This was a tough pick. There's a couple guys. I mean, this is obviously the last pick of the lottery. Some other dudes like Peyton Pritchard, Onyeka Okongwu, who you had going, I think 8th to Atlanta. I did not have 7th, whatever it might be. 6th. Wow, even higher.
Don't disrespect Okongwu.
So I didn't have Okongwu. So I ended up kind of a joke, but I mean, you saw when Minnesota traded like 100 picks for Rudy Gobert, they made sure Woj pointed out that they were excited about keeping Jaden McDaniels. So I wondered what's the big deal with Jaden McDaniels? I mean, and the thing is, the guy has like prototypical size. He's 6'9", he can shoot. I think he's going to have a bigger offensive load on this team. Now that they have this weird team with two centers. So he's probably going to play, he's going to be the backup cat at the 4, or maybe even play a little small forward on this team. He didn't shoot incredibly well in the regular season. He shot pretty well in the playoffs. He was over 50%. He was at 50% from 3 in a small sample size, but he's another guy that's really young. He's going to be 22 before the season starts. But supposedly he's just, oozing with potential. So that's my gamble here is I think instead of taking somebody like Peyton Pritchard, who's small and, we know is not a big playoff guy, or Onyeka Okongwu, who to me seems like a one-dimensional type player. I'm going to roll the dice and take Jaden McDaniels, 14th overall, which I think is a Celtics thing to do, right? They gamble on some potential.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting player. He's only 21 years old, so I mean, the sky's the limit for him. He shot the ball well. I remember him having some moments in that ridiculous Memphis series where it looked like no one deserved to be on the court at times. It was like watching a scrimmage or something like that, just where they were just taking turns giving the ball back to each other. But
just taking turns going down by 20, or I think Minnesota was up 20 like 4 times during that series.
And down 20. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he's a good weak side rim protector. He'll have a good career in the NBA, I think. Just if you can just sometimes in the NBA, it's that simple. If someone needs you to help on the weak side and you're there, like that's enough sometimes to keep a job in basketball. So I mean, this is a good pick. I think the only person we switched out between our two lists was Okongwu, who I valued on defense a lot. But this is a good pick. I think out of the bunch that got drafted, the idea of taking a flyer on him makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, especially at this point in the draft. I mean, you're hoping for either a rotation guy or you're gambling on somebody with major upside, which I think McDaniels has. All right. So that is the redraft of the 2020 NBA draft. So I'll go ahead. I'll just do a quick recap of mine. I'll let you do a quick recap of yours and we'll wrap up. So I had Anthony Edwards going number 1. Number 2 was Tyrese Halliburton to the Warriors. 3, LaMelo Ball to the Hornets. 4, Desmond Bane to the Bulls. Tyrese Maxey at number 5 to the Cavaliers. Number 6, Sadiq Bey to Atlanta. Number 7, Cole Anthony to the Detroit Pistons. Number 8, Isaiah Stewart to the New York Knicks. Number 9, Big Jim, James Wiseman to the Washington Wizards. Number 10, Emmanuel Quickley to the Phoenix Suns. Number 11, Obi Toppin to the San Antonio Spurs. Number 12, Patrick Williams to the Kings. Number 13, Precious Achiuwa to the New Orleans Pelicans. And number 14, Jaden McDaniels to the Boston Celtics via the Memphis Grizzlies.
Cool. I'll run down mine real quick. I should have gotten more nicknames for everybody. Next redraft we do, I'll make sure to have everybody's nickname.
We got to spice it up. Have you seen some of the ones on Basketball Reference?
I should have pulled them up in advance. No, I didn't see them.
Some of them I'm like, where did these even come from? Apparently Rashawn Holmes, his nickname is Dunkman.
Oh.
I've heard that one before.
When I was looking up Isaiah Stewart, I thought I saw Isaiah Beef Stewart, which is that might have been a joke. I don't know, because of beef stew. But
no, I think his nickname is indeed, well, again, according to Basketball Reference, Beef Stew. I mean, he's the dude is sick. He's listed as 6'8", 250, so that's pretty beefy. So it makes sense.
Right. Fair enough.
Go ahead.
All right, number 1, yeah, Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards. 2, LaMelo Ball. I'll make up a nickname for him, Melo. Tyrese Halliburton. No more nicknames. Tyrese Maxey, Desmond Bane, Onyeka Okongwu, Sadiq Bey, Cole Anthony, James Wiseman, Isaiah Stewart, Patrick Williams, Obi Toppin, Precious Achiuwa, and Emmanuel Quickley.
All right. Well, let us know what you guys think. Let us know, are we completely out of our minds? Did we get some of these right? Who would you have picked? Would you have made any changes? Let's say even in the top 5. We seem to have made quite a bit of changes, guys moving up from, the low 20s or the 30s, even all the way up to the top 5. So just shows you what a gamble the NBA draft is, or any draft really. So we plan to do, much more of these for the NFL, probably do top 10, top 15. So we're not going 7 rounds deep in the NFL. And we'll keep doing some NBA ones with focus, of course, on the lottery, because, after 10, 15 picks, it gets a little dicey on some of these guys who probably end up, in the G League or in Europe or something like that. So, so thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys checking us out. Make sure to follow us on all social platforms at 4040 Vision Pod on Instagram, Twitter. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Osama, man, thanks for your time today, dude.
No, this was fun. Looking forward to doing another one soon.